All right, welcome everyone to Real Talk, Emerging from the Darkness. So we thought it was a very interesting title. But yeah, we have a great panel of agents today, starting with Ina Rubinchik, Jeremy Williams, Michelle Kim, and Dino Zuzic. So welcome everyone, thanks for participating.
Thank you for having us.
Hi. Thanks.
Yeah, so for today's panel, we have two residential agents, commercial agent and leasing agent, and we'll get all their perspectives on what the last year and a half has done to real estate in the Bay Area and what they see going forward for these trends. So hopefully everyone will be muted, and yeah, each agent will talk individually, and then towards the end we'll have a Q&A and open it up to the audience. All right, Ina, we'll start with you. So you're leasing agent extraordinaire. Tell us about your whole background. How did you get into real estate, and how did you focus your niche on just leasing? Because you're like the #1 name I think of when it comes to leasing property in San Francisco.
Well, thank you. So I've been in real estate, in general in real estate since 2009. Prior to that, I worked for Deloitte. I have a background in finance and taxation. I actually have a master's degree in taxation. And on my last project at Deloitte, my client was Levi's, and we refiled about 20 years of tax returns for them. And when we presented, we spent hours and days and weeks working on this project. It was insane. And when we presented it to Levi's, the tax director went, and I realized that what I did didn't matter. What I spent my life doing every single day for 80 hours a week did not matter. It didn't make any difference in my life or in anyone else's life. So I quit, and I actually walked the streets of San Francisco for about a year, wondering what it is that I wanted to do. And then one of my walks, I had a vision that I wanted to do. I wanted to be in real estate, and I wanted to do asset management specifically. So I took out the yellow pages. This is 2009, still had yellow pages. And I ripped out all real estate pages, researched, circled every real estate investment company in the Bay Area and sent them an email, just to about 40 companies or so, asking for an unpaid internship. And out of 40 companies, 4 responded. First 3 said, well, we'd love to have you, but it's 2009. We don't even know if we're going to be open tomorrow ourselves. And the 4th company said, are you ready for an 90-day? Can you commit to a 90-day internship? Yes, I can. Can you start tomorrow? Yes, I can. And I worked for these guys for 5 years. I was unpaid for the first 4 months, and then little by little I've done, they used to buy apartment buildings all over the country. So I did all the underwriting work for them. I was part of the acquisitions team, asset management, you name it. And in 2012, they bought Six Mint Plaza. Many of you know that building. And they sort of looked around the office and offered me a leasing position. They said, do you want to lease and manage the building? I had no idea what it was about. So I said, sure, why not? Let me try it. And I was about 5 months pregnant with my first son. So I stood at the plaza with a Ziploc bag full of keys and a baby in my tummy. And I just thought, what the hell did I get myself into? I knew nothing about real estate. I knew nothing about rules. I knew nothing about rent control, nothing whatsoever. But, somehow by trial and error, I did really, really well and nearly doubled the rents in that building. I've had a lot of startups in that building. I had an amazing time. I had 2 years of just nonstop fun, quite honestly. And then when the building was sold, I realized that leasing is what I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the flexibility. I enjoy the money. I enjoy kind of really being my own boss, not being in the office, meeting different people. And I kind of like kept going towards leasing. I worked for Rent SF Now, was their luxury leasing agent for a while, and I switched to at the SFAR party. I met Michael Barnacle, who's the Pacific Heights office manager for Corcoran now, and I said to him, Michael, how is it that Pacific Union has a leasing department, and Climb, that was a few years ago, they have a leasing department. How come Zephyr doesn't have a leasing department? He said, well, why don't you start one? So I did. So I worked for Zephyr for a couple of years, and then Compass came calling, and you don't say no. You don't say no to Compass, not to the offer they made 3 years ago. So I've been at Compass for the last 3 years, and I just honestly, I love the agents that I work with. I love what I do, and yeah, I kind of built that niche for me. There are plenty of really good leasing agents out there, and there's always one more. And I feel like I've become like the go-to leasing agent for Compass agents, and that's been pretty good for me.
Yeah, thank you for all the background information. I didn't know that about you, actually. Well, tell us about the market in the past year, the rental market in San Francisco. How has that changed?
Well, 2020 rental market has certainly tested my patience, my tenacity, and my commitment to my business and to my brand, because at some point it sort of stalled and stopped. And all of a sudden people just left the city, and hundreds, if not thousands of units became vacant. Prices dropped significantly. It became incredibly difficult to lease anything that was in a high rise. I gave up pretty much trying to rent anything in Soma, but even in Pacific Heights, I had one listing that was on the market for 13 weeks. And 29 tours. I mean, something that should rent within a few days was on the market forever. So definitely that was a big test for me. But yeah, it's gotten better. As soon as the calendar changed to 2021, all of a sudden the market is hot again. It's absolutely insane. Everything rents on the first tour. There's no concessions. There are no negotiations. People just come, they look, and they sign. It's been unbelievable. I have a 12-unit lease-up building in the Sunset right now. It's a brand new building at 44th and Noriega, right above Gus's Market, and I'm leasing up the whole thing. And 2 weeks, and we're 50% leased, and people are paying $5,300 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath in Outer Sunset. That is not even a pre-COVID number. That is, I don't think there's ever been a number like that, because you can get a single family house for $4,600 out in the Sunset. So yeah, it's definitely been tough, but it's really good right now.
I think that speaks a lot to the resilience of the market here in San Francisco, especially in the Sunset, where a few years ago you couldn't get people to live out there, but now I think people are really valuing just the peace and quiet.
Absolutely, it's really the community. It's the amenities that don't close. You are 4 blocks from the ocean, or however many blocks you are, and you're a few blocks from Golden Gate Park, and you can always get that peace of mind, because if restaurants are closed or whatnot, you could at least have that to yourself, and you are sitting. It's just calm and quiet, and it's safe. Pretty safe out there. So a lot of families are there, and that we all know that properties sell for $500,000-$600,000 over asking out there. It's the hottest neighborhood probably in the city right now.
Do you think, just going back to what happened last year, do you think there's a disparity between landlords in terms of who are stuck to pre-COVID numbers and maybe haven't updated their units, and versus landlords who are willing to put in the money and energy to update their units to reflect the reality of what renters want? Is there a big disparity there that you're seeing?
No, I'm not. I'm working. I work with a lot of landlords who have had tenants move out in the last year, and to many of them, I've said, look, I mean, we can give away your unit right now for literally peanuts, for maybe half of what you've been getting before, or what we can do is remodel it right now. Because if your unit is 1982 inside, you're not going to get much rent for it. So, I personally managed a remodel for a client of mine. And it was, we did a great job. We basically spent 3 months completely renovating it, and we got great rent afterwards. So I've mentioned that to a lot of different people, and some people take my advice and people don't. And if you can afford to, it's a great idea. But I think that ship has sailed. The market is pretty good right now. And for most properties, 1 bedrooms are still a little bit tougher because there are way too many of them. And even if it's a single person, they still want a 2 bedroom because they want to separate their home from their office, right? They want to sort of like wake up in their bed, get dressed, go have coffee in their kitchen, and then go into another room, and that's their office, because people are sort of very tired of blending it all in and working at the dinner table. So yes, 1 bedrooms are pretty challenging still right now. But other than that, it's awesome.
And what are 3 tools and websites that you can't live without? I think I know one of them already.
Yes, so Instagram, obviously. Instagram, huge source of business for me in marketing. Zillow has overtaken Craigslist by I don't know. It used to be that I would post on Craigslist and most tenants would come from Craigslist, and now Zillow has overtaken them completely. Barely, almost no one even looks at Craigslist anymore. I would say, what would be the third one? The third one, and one of my favorite tools, is Forewarn. It's an app that you can basically double check who you're talking to. If somebody's texting you about a property, you can run their phone number, and it's available to realtors only. You can run their phone number, you can see their entire background check. Who they are, where they've lived, their name, if they have any liens, if they have, literally just about anything about it. And in my business, that's really important to know who I'm speaking with. So those are top 3 tools that I would say.
So that's those are something that you would continue. Did you start using some of them during the pandemic or before?
Well, I've leaned into Instagram quite a bit during the pandemic for sure. But the Zillow's always been great. And Forewarn has been very useful because it's just great for safety reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else that you've adapted into your business that you're going to continue that you picked up during the pandemic, during lockdown?
Before the pandemic, I started using video quite a bit. And I am definitely doing that because virtual tours were required. So it's really useful to take a video of the property, and just when somebody inquires about it, I have a pre-written response with a video link. Please take a look at this property from beginning to end with sound, where I explain what the property is like, the layout, and so on. And usually it saves me a lot of time because people will watch the video and be like, oh, this is not for us, right? This is not going to work. That saves me a lot of time. So definitely going to continue doing that. And that certainly helps my, it gives me content for my YouTube channel, and YouTube is owned by Google. So, and then with Google, that's part of your SEO, and that's how you become known to the world, because Google knows who you are.
It seems you got everything just very tightly packaged for.
I actually do. I've spent a lot of time making sure that if you Google leasing agent San Francisco, I show up #1 organically. Without I'd never run any ads on Instagram and Google and anywhere. On Facebook, nothing. There's nothing. I don't spend any money on that, but I've spent money on the SEO, and I show up, and that's how I get a lot of calls and a lot of business. So people look for, tenants moving out. So they go to Google and like leasing agent San Francisco, and here I am, leasing agent 415. And that's, you got to do it. You got to spend time on it. You got to make it work. So just out of curiosity, Google real estate agent San Francisco and see who comes up.
Yeah, I guess that's a challenge for the audience to do that while they're there right now.
Who comes up? I know.
If you had a crystal ball, what would your forecast be for the rental market in San Francisco and just the Bay Area as a whole?
I was wrong last year when I thought you know, shit's gonna hit the fan and everything's gonna fall apart. No, just the opposite. So someone once said that if you are depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. And if you are happy, you're living in the present. Stay in the present and enjoy the present. I don't know. We can't predict. We can't really know what's going on. You know, it's all in retrospect, shoulda, woulda, coulda. So, you know, it's great right now. Make money, be smart with it, invest it, and you know what? If it's gonna be bad, you'll be protected, and if it's gonna be great, then you'll make even more money.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else you want to add?
Anything else you want to ask?
Ashley, do you have anything right now?
I think I'm good. I'm actually very excited to listen to everyone else and what they have to say.
Okay, well, I'm sure there's going to be some more questions for you at the end too. So,
awesome.
All right, thank you and appreciate it. And next, Jeremy, you ready?
Yes, sir. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, well, tell us about how you got into real estate.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was actually working in a lot of customer service and hospitality in college. Worked at a bunch of restaurants, and one of my colleagues who had a real estate background left and started working for this broker. And she would always tell me about them, you know, how active they were and how they needed help. So I actually started working for that broker as like a third assistant, and did that for about 3.5 years and kind of moved my way up the ranks and, you know, took over more and more responsibility. And, you know, by the end of 3 years, I was managing their business. We were doing about 200 million in sales a year, just between them, myself, and we had, you know, interns here and there and junior brokers here and there. So I learned very quickly how to do, I specialized in multifamily commercial real estate at a high level, and how to do a lot of transactions. I was handling about 20 escrows a year. So I just got to know how to do escrows, you know, back and forth. And when I wanted to get into sales, that opportunity wasn't there with that broker. So I went to a company called NAI and learned cold calling. And started cold calling, and within maybe 9 months, I had my first deal in escrow, and it's just kind of been a pretty exciting ride since then.
Yeah, and commercial's a tough nut to crack. Not a lot of agents just transition from, you know, getting their license to commercial. How did you find that, you know, that change, I would say?
Yeah, well, so I actually always was in commercial because even before I had my license, I was working for a commercial broker. I actually, you know, growing up, I thought real estate could be fun. I thought it could be cool. I always thought that I would be fun to do residential, you know, watching all of the $1 million listing shows and, you know, flip this house. And when I landed in commercial, it was terrifying. But at the same time, once I figured out that it is a niche market and that there's, you know, it's kind of top heavy. There's not everyone goes straight into commercial. So after 4 years of working for a commercial realtor, when it was time to go out on my own and do sales, it was kind of a no-brainer to just stay with what I already knew.
And well, tell us about last year as well. What did you experience? Was it just a big change in the market, you know, from investors buying and selling office buildings, multifamily?
Yeah, so my bread and butter is, you know, 5+ unit sales, mostly multifamily. I do a number of 2 to 4 units, but mostly, you know, the 5+ units seems to be kind of where my niche is. And last year, I had about 3 closings in the first quarter. I was actually picking up a lot of momentum, had a couple listings and a few closings under my belt. And then once shelter in place hit, you know, everything went on hold throughout the whole market. You know, I think for residential, it was about 45 days before things started to move again. With commercial, nothing happened for the whole year. So I was very lucky. You know, when I say nothing happened, unless you had a property in Pacific Heights, it wasn't going to sell. And a lot of that was, you know, from the investment standpoint, it didn't make sense as an investor to buy anything unless you were doing a 1031 exchange and you had to buy something, or, you had confidence in the market, which nobody had confidence in the market. And, a lot of my clients, they own several apartment buildings. And for the first time in their investment careers, I had clients calling me and they're like, hey, I have 5 properties and I have 8 vacancies and I can't sleep, and I'm sure Ina in the rental side understands, what we were dealing with our clients who had so many vacancies. So for an investor to buy, a property where, people could leave at any moment or that had a lot of vacancies and when rents were dropping just didn't make sense. So I actually didn't even, first quarter, I was very lucky that I had a few closings. And then from second quarter through the end of the year, I didn't close any commercial sales. I was, fortunate that I had a few referrals for residential. I sold a couple houses. I had a client who I sold a property for a few years ago who wanted to buy a house on the peninsula. And then I had another client who was from New York that I got referred to. I helped them buy a house in Orinda. And, I was very lucky to fall back on that, so to speak, to kind of get me through the summer. And then right around November, December, once the vaccine started being talked about, once we had a new president in the office, I started seeing more activity in the 2 to 4 unit market. And one of our listings that was a duplex listing, after having no activity, we started getting showings and we started getting offers. So we sold that. And then, similar to what Ina mentioned, she experienced since January, my business has exploded. I have like 7 listings. Most of them are pending. I'm getting calls constantly from clients who, are ready to list their buildings. Some of them waited too long and they're in a pretty bad situation. They're just ready to sell. And then there's also on the other side, a lot of buyers are out there right now. I have a recent experience that I'm still kind of in shock about. I signed a listing for a 5-plex a couple of weeks ago, and I showed it twice the next day. And I had an offer, the following Tuesday. And before I could even put it on the market, I already had multiple buyers from my own database who were saying, we want this property. And I basically, by the time I put it on the market, I already had a bidding war between 5 of my own investors. And, the trustee was very happy to ratify it for a couple $100,000 over the asking price within 10 days of signing the listing agreement. And for a 5+ unit building, that's not unheard of, but it's the type of activity that I haven't seen since like 2018. So it's just very exciting to, it's a very exciting time to be in real estate and to, stay in front of your clients because there's a lot of activity happening right now.
Yeah, well, it's glad to hear that, everything's recovering on your end. Well, the pandemic's one thing, but did the moratorium and COPA also throw another wrench into the pie for your investors?
Yeah, no, COPA's interesting. I actually talked to a lot of agents about this. I sold a few properties to the nonprofits before COPA. So I got to know their process and got to know them pretty closely. So once COPA happened, I already kind of knew how to engage with the nonprofits in a way where, we could all kind of get along, so to speak. Right now, they are overwhelmed. They really can't buy anything. There are very few properties that they're actually going after because COPA has created a process where they get everything. So they're kind of being very picky about what they go after, if any. So that doesn't really get in the way too much. And again, I get calls from agents asking me about it, and I just tell them, don't worry about it. They're probably not going to buy it. I actually had a listing that was the perfect property for a nonprofit, and they reached out to me. They exercised their right of first offer, and within the first week, I reached out, and I know them pretty well, and I said, hey, are you guys going to buy this? If not, the seller needs to sell it. We don't want to wait a month if you're not going to buy it. And they just said, there's no way that we're going to get a response from the city that quickly. Go ahead and sell it. So COPA, not a huge issue. The moratorium on evictions, I feel like most of my clients did the smart thing by just having conversations with their tenants and working out agreements where they might have had a short-term rent reduction. I think that was kind of the smartest thing for a landlord to have done last year, was just to say, hey, we're all in this boat together. This is, devastating to everyone. How can we work together? There were landlords that I'm sure we've all heard about that didn't do that, and they lost all their tenants. And for me as an agent, whether the building's full or vacant, I mean, if the seller is going to sell it or a buyer is going to buy it, it didn't really affect that too much. However, I do have a handful of clients who really held on to the rentals, who really held on to wanting the rent that they wanted. And they're actually happy that they did for some of those units, because now, I'm hearing about, a 3-bedroom apartment renting for $5,000 in Hayes Valley, whereas in the height of the pandemic, they couldn't even get, $3,000 for it, for example.
I guess you're already answering part of the next question I had. How has your investors' mindset fundamentally changed, if at all, from pre-pandemic, during, and now post, like their expectations?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of different types of investors out there. And, I kind of look at it as there's the investors who are very much already in San Francisco, who own, several properties. Again, for the most part, they were kind of at a standstill. We did do a lot of showings, and I did a lot of tours with my clients where we looked at properties to kind of stay on top of the market so that we can find the right opportunity to buy something or to sell something. But again, for the most part, people just weren't pulling the trigger unless it was an amazing deal. And now, again, just in the last several months, a lot of listings, a lot of sellers are super motivated to just, move on from San Francisco, maybe because of the moratorium or other things that are happening. And on the buy side, in the last, handful of weeks, the level of activity that I've seen in the 5+ unit market is just really shocking.
What advice would you have for investors wanting to get into that 5+ unit market?
Call me. Yeah, no, it's
a much smaller segment of the market too.
Yeah, it is. It's a nice little corner of the market. Most of my sales average around 2 million. It just seems that a 5-unit building's worth about 2 million. And I get a lot of leads off of LoopNet right now. A lot of new investors who I don't have a relationship with, who might be from South Bay, for example. And there's a lot of people who got rich during COVID and who made a lot of money, and they want to deploy it, and they see San Francisco as a really smart place to invest, and they see this kind of period that we're in between COVID as a great opportunity to buy things while the activity is still not at the height that it could be at. So I actually had a showing with at one of my duplex listings earlier, and it was a buyer from South Bay, and without going too much into it, they were there without their agent, and I asked them, where's your agent, and where are they from? They said South Bay, and I just said, hey, great, but you need to work with someone locally. So that's, I think, the first rule when you're going to do any real estate in San Francisco. I think everyone can attest to this. It's a different beast. You need to work with someone locally. And when it comes to a tenant occupied property in San Francisco, it's very, very important to just have someone who knows what they're doing representing you. I have so many clients that I have listings for now who, bought through someone who didn't know what they were doing. And now I'm selling their property 10 years later at a discount, so that's, I think, the best thing an investor can do to protect themselves is just work with someone who knows that corner of the market.
Yeah, and I think you've spoken to this where most of your clients already own a few properties in the city, so they have a foothold, and they know what they're doing. Are you seeing a lot of just non-local investors coming as well from maybe the East Coast or internationally, instead of just like locally from South Bay or East Bay or North Bay?
It's tough. and again, maybe some of my colleagues on the residential side see more of this. I don't see a ton of buyers who aren't local. I get calls from people maybe from Southern California or from the East Coast, but they don't usually get that far into it because of rent control, because of, you know, tenant rights, because of, you know, all these different factors that come into play with a multifamily property or commercial property to own and to operate in San Francisco. You know, it's like once you kind of give them the reality of what it's going to be like to be an investor here, most of them, a lot of them just kind of say, hey, that's not for me. I'm going to stick to what I know. And, you know, for the investors who do have a foothold in the market, it just makes them, you know, even more competitive versus someone who's new trying to come into the market. I also have a lot of, I get a ton of referrals from other agents who have clients who maybe they have a few houses and they have a duplex and they're kind of working their way up into the multi-unit market. And it's a huge learning curve for them as well. You know, they can have tons of investment experience, but once you kind of get into that tenant occupied multi-unit San Francisco market, I tell most of my clients who are buyers, you know, it's a 9-month process. I joke that it's like having a baby, although I've never had a baby. But, you know, from the time we first talk to the time that we write an offer or close a sale of a multifamily property, it's going to be about 9 months, because the first several months is really the education curve of just really understanding what you're getting yourself into. And, you know, oftentimes I kind of try to discourage people from buying. And if they still really want it, then I'm like, let's do it. And yeah, it's pretty exciting to see, you know, to answer your question directly, I get more people who are already local kind of building up from the single family home duplex market to the, you know, multi-unit market than I do from, you know, out of the country or out of state.
Yeah, I think it takes a certain level investor who's already very familiar with the local laws and the rents and knows what's going on, because it's a very, very tough market to break into. I guess on that note, to dovetail on that question, what's the motivation that you see from these, you know, maybe it's their first property, right? Maybe they're coming from South Bay and buying their first property, or maybe they already own 5 properties. What's the appeal for these investors to invest in 5+ unit properties in the Bay Area when, you know, cap rates like 3, 4, 5% and rent control and tenants? And I'm sure you've gotten this, you probably get this every day, and they're saying, oh, why don't I just go invest in Texas or Florida or somewhere else?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. You know, San Francisco you know, you mentioned earlier, it's a super resilient market. And I think savvy investors, they can see that. You know, we have some of the best universities, some of the best restaurants, some of the best, you know, companies that are headquartered in the Bay Area. So it always is a huge draw for investors. And the newer investors that I see that are coming into the San Francisco market, you know, they usually have some success in tech or some recent success in another business where they just know that if they buy something in San Francisco 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or even 2 years from now, that they're gonna, it would have been a really smart move. So I just feel like San Francisco has such a big draw that I don't really have to convince people about investing in the Bay Area. I do have a lot of conversations with clients about the difference of investing in, you know, a 2 to 4 unit property versus a 5+ unit property. One of the things that I bring up to them is you know, with a duplex or a triplex, you kind of have limited options on how to make money, right? You know, with a duplex, for example, if you have 1 unit vacant and 1 unit tenant occupied, there's only one thing you can do to make money, which is buying out that top floor tenant and renovating, right? When you have 3 units, you have more options. When you have 5 units, you have more options. So it's just kind of more about diversifying your investment. And it takes a while. You know, usually I see people go up that ladder of single family home, duplex, triplex, 5+ unit type of thing, 10 unit, and then they come back down to the 5 unit after they, you know, have a property management nightmare on a 10 unit building. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it and how I try to explain it to my clients. I love 5-6 unit buildings. You know, I mentioned earlier, most of my clients love them too. When I get a listing, I get multiple offers on those super quick. And you know, it's still a learning curve for those who don't already own one of those properties.
That's what they should call you.
Exactly.
You can, yeah. And what have you adapted during your business during the pandemic that you're going to continue to practice?
Yeah, you know, I read the questions and I thought about this, and
Yeah.
the best answer, the most honest answer that I have is I've learned to, you know, be less available to everybody and to really prioritize the clients who are prioritizing me. I feel that earlier in my career and even pre-pandemic, I just felt like I had to be available for everyone all the time. And, you know, I've gone through, you know, COVID was really great for me to go through my database and reach out to everyone and find who was serious about working with me and having those, you know, what could be tough conversations. It's kind of like dating. It's like, are we doing this or not? If we're not, you know, that's cool. I'm not going to call you anymore, you know? And that frees up so much time and energy and mental space of just knowing who your people are. You know, commercial, we're known for not having a lot of loyalty between investors and realtors. And I have the conversation, you know, I had 2 people I fired yesterday where I just said, hey, you know, are we going to do this together? And they said, I'm working with someone else. And I said, that's cool. I hope they do well for you. You know, keep me in mind, but I'm not going to chase after you. So to answer that directly, one of the things I've really adopted is just kind of standing my ground more and, you know, kind of setting those expectations for what I expect out of a client realtor relationship, and then really making sure that that I'm getting that and that I'm delivering, you know, what they're expecting as well. And just being okay with the fact that you're not going to be for everybody, but for every client you fire or let go, I really believe, and I've seen it, you know, you get 2 more clients that are just way better and that treat you way better.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of great insight with communication. It's definitely been, you know, it's very, very important, I would say, before the pandemic, and during it's been even more important.
Yeah.
And then one last question. So if you had a crystal ball, what would your forecast be?
It's tough, you know, right now, the way that my clients are behaving, you know, writing offers on properties and you know, bidding properties up. It tells me that we're getting back to that 2018 market where things were just really insane. The other side is, you know, there is a concern that maybe it's like a little bubble, you know, post, you know, vaccine coming out, you know, new president, you know, COVID's over all of a sudden, and everyone's kind of racing to buy the deals. So, you know, in my little corner of the market, I get the feeling that we're going to see a lot of activity this summer. Through the fall and even into spring, and then there's going to be a little dip where everything kind of, you know, levels out back to like a normal level of activity, because it really feels kind of inflated right now, but I'm happy with that.
Our normal is still crazy for the rest of the country, right?
Exactly. There's no normal in San Francisco.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all your insight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ashley, I'll hand it off to you now.
Thank you, Houston. I would love to pass the torch to Michelle, if you'd be so kind as to enlighten everyone of who you are and how you started your business. I think you have a wonderful story.
Oh, well, let's start from the beginning. So I've been in precious jewelry sales as my first passion in life. And then I decided to get my real estate license in 2005. And it became full circle when a couple that I helped purchase an engagement ring years later, fast forward when I got my real estate license, I was able to help them buy their home. So it was really gratifying to me to be a part of that journey and 2 milestones for them, you know, so that's really nice. And I've been doing sales my whole time that I've been able to work. So it's all I know. And I really appreciate my team and, you know, everything that site has to offer. And it's been really great. This year especially has been phenomenal.
And tell us how you started your team. How, you know, when did you start becoming a team leader?
Oh, good question, Ashley. I joined Side in end of 2016, and we launched Side in 2017, January. And when Side asked me to come on board to launch with them, they asked me to bring 1 associate. I was always a sole agent, you know, just me, myself, and I. But I'm a mom of 3 kids, and my husband works at night, so time is very precious for me. And when I asked the CEO of Side, you know, how do I get my business from 23 million to here? How do I do that? Because I'm just inching my way every year. And he's like, we are going to show you the way. And so I brought Gary Doe, my senior associate, to join with me. And he was my very first. And since then, I now have a core team. Mosaik is 6 of us. And then we have 2 sub teams, which is Norm Fung and Associates and Pat Lee team. And we have staff members, you know, director of operations, we have a showing agent, we have a PED lady who's our virtual assistant. And I'm hiring a new assistant that I interviewed yesterday, whom I like very much. And coincidentally, bought her engagement ring at my former jewelry store, which is so weird because we were just talking about that. And so, yeah, no, our team is now, we have what, 12? This year to date, we're at $146 million in transactions. So we've been very, very busy. Yeah, so it's been great.
That is amazing. I mean, that is what, within 3.5 years, almost 4 years.
Yes.
2 people to 12. That's astounding. And in fact, we were, our other topic for Real Talk was going to be talking about teams and single agents and kind of the differences between the two and things like that. But that's probably for later this year. Yeah. What is the biggest hurdle that you overcame this last year within your team and individually?
Sure. I think that last year when shelter in place happened and everything was put on pause and there was all that uncertainty, the unknown, all the offices were closed. So it was really hard to, meet people or even have team meetings, and Zoom became kind of a norm for us, but it's lacking that, interaction, that human interaction, which we so very much needed. I mean, being isolated, I can't even imagine people who are single and being isolated in their home for that long. So I took our team outdoors. I decided we are going to meet at Golden Gate Park. We're going to sit, apart from each other. I'm going to cater food and we'll have our team meeting there because we need to see each other. We need to also share, moments of what's happening right now. And some of us were very terrified. Some of us knew it was going to be okay. But I just really needed the team to know that we are all going through this together and that it's going to be okay. So we even recorded a TikTok video. I sent a little video to the team the night before. I said, try to learn these steps. I'll see you tomorrow. They're like, what? Why are we learning these steps? It was fun. It was really great. And I needed them to feel like, it was because COVID is so heavy that I really wanted the team to feel like lighter when we met, lighter, enjoy our time together, have our sales meeting outdoors, keep our distance, but really talk about our sales. What's happening? What can we do to reach out to our past clients? How are we going to build our business? We weren't sure what was going to happen with the real estate market last year. I'm sure all of you were concerned. And then of course, Q1 comes around in 2021 and we're having the most amazing year ever. So yeah, that was the biggest hurdle for me. And I think that I realized that it's becoming kind of a routine thing. So now we're trying to make it a quarterly thing where we meet outdoors at Golden Gate Park. And now we bring our dogs with us, which is really fun. So it's been, becoming that's our new norm now, is having picnics in the park.
So that's something that you'll continue with your business as it continues to grow. I think that's amazing to not only take care of your team members and yourself, which in turn takes care of our clients,
right?
For a better state of mind. What else are you going to continue that you've learned or adapt to in the pandemic that you're going to continue?
Yeah,
emerging from the darkness.
Right. So pre-COVID, like right before COVID, I was starting to do some videos and I was just getting into it. I think some people are very advanced in them. I am not one to be great on social media at all. I try, I have people for that do a much better job than I. But, I was starting to just do some highlight videos and 3D walkthrough videos. And then when COVID happened, we had to adjust. So that is something that's becoming a norm for us. So we'll be doing that for all our listings going forward. We did try something new when a condo was sitting on the market for some time, that we decided to pay advertisement. It was basically a social media ad that targets the buyer that's Googling words such as high rise condo, 2-bedroom, views of Bay Bridge, or whatever it may be. And we decided to target that consumer because open houses were no longer around. Showings are by appointment only. And some people, as you know, there's a lot of movement happening right now. People are exiting the city, but people are also moving back into the city for jobs and relocating for school or for working at the hospital, whatever it may be. And so with that said, you know, it was really important to be able to reach out to the consumer beyond just doing the virtual tour. So I did spend some money on that, and it came out to be actually quite interesting. We have people reach out and say, can you do a virtual tour for me? I saw your ad, and I thought that was really cool. So that's something that I will definitely work on for properties that I feel, you know, might benefit from that. But of course, if it's priced right according to the market and, you know, it's in a great location, right now it will sell. I mean, things are selling within a week, right? Things go into contracts so quickly. But we get those listings every once in a while where we know it's going to be a little trickier. So how do we find that consumer? Now that open houses are opening up again, which is really great. I mean, gosh, we missed, you know, seeing people, meeting people, saying hello to people. Welcome. Thank you for coming to my open house, right? So, but yeah, that's something I'm going to continue as well. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that kind of brings me to the next question is, you know, I know that you're a big marketer, you know, whether that's online or mail, you know, what is your top marketing strategy that you find gets your best return?
I know what people think of Zillow, and they think don't pay for leads, and, you know, and I actually don't pay for Zillow leads. There is 2 different types of Zillows, I should say, types of leads through Zillow. One is called market-based pricing, another one's called Zillow Flex. Zillow Flex is so new that it's a hybrid of a model. I was myself and the team, along with one other team at Side, we were the beta testers for Zillow Flex. And I'm looking at my numbers here just to give you some stats. That was probably my best for, give me a second, I'm pulling it up now. We ended up having, you know, 20 some odd % of our sales year to date through Zillow. And we don't pay for Zillow leads. Again, it's a referral basis, kind of like partner agent. What is it called? Redfin partner agent. There you go. Where you pay a referral fee once you close. Same kind of idea. So Zillow this year, Zillow Flex is 20.3% of our production out of 146 million. And then Zillow market-based pricing, which we stopped doing in January, but we had some past clients from that spend that we had, was 16.2% of our volume this year to date. So Zillow's probably the biggest winner here when I look at the pie graph.
Super interesting, because yeah, you're right. There's people on different sides of the Zillow trend, you know, and people believe in it, people don't hate it, people think Zillow's, you know, coming out to get us. You know, I personally believe San Francisco, that I don't even think Zillow wants to take on San Francisco because we're too crazy. But you know, that's good for your team. With these, actually, since you probably saw a lot of most buyers through the Zillow to understand their new ways of thinking. Has there been any change in sellers and buyers expectations, I guess, on purchasing or what they're looking for?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, because of what happened last year and how people weren't able to just meander into an open house, you know, on their block and visit properties without having to schedule them in through Calendly or Showing Time and all of these things, signing the pandemic entry advisory form, all of these things that make it a little bit more difficult for just anybody to go tour property. Now buyers are much more serious, of course. Most of them are pre-approved and they're vetted. You know, no one will go through the hoops of scheduling all of this just to go see a property if they weren't serious to buy. With that said, with Zillow, you know, people will reach out to the local person who specializes in that zip code and whatnot. That's for Flex. For people who pay for market-based pricing, it's people who pay for the zip code. And irregardless, when they connect with that agent, typically in the past, there were lots of looky-loos, people who just want to take a look just because they're curious, even neighbors that wanted to see what their neighbor's property is going for and the interior, what they've done with the renovation or whatnot. But now with the way things have going with COVID, they do a lot of their footwork online first. So most of them are either pre-approved or they're in the, you know, in communication with their lending institution. They've done the virtual tour, they've done the 3D walkthrough, they've looked at the highlight video. All listings now have floor plans. So they're looking at floor plans, they're looking at neighborhood, they're looking at what school district or whatever it may be. I mean, we're still in a lottery, but you know, with that said, I feel like it's actually a lot easier for lead gen systems like Zillow or Redfin Partner Agent. I really do feel that. I think that agents knock these two kind of lead gen systems thinking, they suck, Redfin sucks, Zillow sucks, no one should be paying money, they're terrible. Well, I do agree that you shouldn't be paying money for leads. That's why I don't pay for them anymore, but I did try it for a few years. But I do feel like, you know, I think that buyers are a lot more serious. They've done a lot of the footwork. Sellers, on the other hand, I think that there's been a huge exodus of people who have never, you know, imagined to leave the city. And I think they're becoming more open-minded to relocating out of the area. If I look at my Google Sheets right now, every single listing I've had, all of those sellers have left San Francisco and have gone elsewhere. Sacramento, Roseville, Houston, Texas, another one in Austin, Texas, another one in Palm Springs. So I'm looking at them and I realize they feel like San Francisco has changed quite a bit, which it has. And people who thought they were going to retire and live here forever because the convenience and the weather and how beautiful the city is, they're feeling like, you know, they need a change of environment. And on that note, I feel like earlier when Jeremy was saying that he feels like it's kind of a bubble, I do feel like we're in somewhat of an emotional bubble. And I say emotional because Outer Sunset and Outer Richmond, can you imagine people paying $1.4 million on an 800 square foot single family dwelling that needs work, by the way, just because it's 2 blocks from the ocean? Who would have ever thought that Outer Sunset and Outer Richmond properties would sell the way that they do right now? It's an emotional bubble. They're feeling compelled to be near the ocean, especially when we had all those fires last year. You know, the fresh air, the freshest air was right by the ocean, right? And then with COVID and not being able to be around each other, I mean, that's why high-rise buildings, I feel like, suffered so much because everyone was trying to avoid each other like the plague. They didn't want to share an elevator with anyone. You know, and I've seen people when I even did a showing at the Millennium Tower where, you know, they only allow a few people. And I was in the elevator, they're like, I'll take the next one. I'm like, it's only me. There's only one person. But yet, you know, people are just feeling the need to have that space. And with that said comes with all of the natural, you know, parks that we have in San Francisco that we never get to enjoy. Golden Gate Park. I've never seen so many people in Golden Gate Park. I've never seen so many people at Ocean Beach. Who would have known that Ocean Beach is a great hangout for kids doing bonfires for their graduation, their 8th grade graduation? We just did that for my son's 8th grade graduation. That was so much fun. And people never enjoyed these, you know, these areas. And right now I feel like everyone's just compelled to be somewhere outdoors. This is why single family dwellings with a backyard have been selling like hotcakes, and people will pay an arm and a leg for them because they want their own backyard. They don't want to share amenities. Plus all the amenities were shut down for so long. You know, they're now slowly opening them up. But I feel like, yeah, those two things, the buyers and sellers, I feel like that's kind of my take on it. But I do agree with Jeremy that it kind of feels like a bubble. I don't think it's going to burst, but I do feel like there will be a correction in that market, you know? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you kind of took my next question to kind of end it was, you know, where you think it's going to go. And, you know, it makes sense. And I agree. I think we're going to see this for quite a little bit longer, kind of what Jeremy said, and maybe we'll see a slight change in next Q1.
Yeah,
it'll be very interesting. But thank you so much for sharing your insight, and you know, I'm excited to chat with you. And I would love to bring Dino in on this to chat about his thoughts and where he's come from, because he is our other residential real estate professional here. Dino, let's hear your story.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me. This is really delightful and nice hearing everyone's story too. Interesting paths we've all taken to get into this business. For me, I moved here from Cleveland, Ohio in 2008. Got an undergrad in accounting, MBA in finance. I came here because this was like the Wall Street of the West Coast, and I like the California lifestyle. But unfortunately, I came in 2008 when the market turned, and kind of scrambled to find my niche in the market. I ended up networking my butt off and met an incredible guy, Ron Apta, who's still in the business. And I met him incidentally through some other individuals in 2009 and worked with him as a junior assistant, kind of like Ina, just drank from the fire hose, did whatever he told me to do, worked for free for about 6 months, and learned the ropes, and stuck with Ron for about 3 years. And from there, kind of carved my own path in residential real estate, and kind of never looked back. I've since been coaching with Steve Scholl. Coaching is amazing. I think we all need a good mentor in this business. If there's anything I could lend to the junior agents or newer agents in this community, you really need a good mentor. You need a good coach, whether that's a manager or an older agent, someone you can lean on, someone you can share your troubles with, because it's such an up and down business. It can be very emotional at times, especially last year with COVID, with folks making quick moves for whatever reason. But Steve has been incredible for me. Mindset, I think, is a big thing for this business. I think being able to manage your clients and manage your own state of mind, because things move quickly and decisions can be made hastily at times. You know, look, we've all been there. We have various inspectors that come through. We have stagers we're working with. We're working with various buyers, showings, you know, trying to get marketing put together, disclosure package items, questions that are outstanding, working with the city planning department, building department. I mean, the list goes on and on. So I think mindset and just staying even keel. And that's one thing in working with Ron Apta, was that guy did not even seem to have a pulse, if you will. He was so even keel, nothing threw him off. And learning from such a great mentor and being with folks like that really gave me a good platform to work off of. So if there's anything I can lend to agents coming up in the business, is find yourself someone that you liken yourself with, that you trust, and that you can lean upon, because I think that's invaluable. And guys like Steve Scholl, you know, performancecoaching.com, if you want to look him up, he's incredible. He's really helped me. For example, in historically, I would do about 25, 30 million in sales a year. Then in 2019, I doubled my number. I did 54 million. I'm just an individual agent. And then last year during COVID, I did 67 million in sales as an individual agent. And I look back and I'm thinking to myself, how the hell did I do this? Where did the deals come from? And I think it's just a great deal of the compound effect, you know, just kind of putting in your time and doing the right things, you know, following a process, being more process driven, you know, time blocking, saying, look, from 9 a.m. to noon, I'm going to call my past clients, you know, from noon to 2, I'm going to go prospect. And from, 2 to 5, I'm going to set up my client meetings. And being really regimented. I think a lot of people get into this business because they like the independence, they like the autonomy, which is absolutely true. But at the same time, you have to be really rigorous in managing your time appropriately, because it goes quick. And the most important asset and commodity we have is our time. And like Jeremy said earlier, you know, we can't chase. And I love that when Jeremy said that, because it reminded me that we cannot chase. We cannot chase clients. We cannot chase opportunities, because like Jeremy said, you know, you have those difficult conversations with a client. Before you know it, you are going to get 2 more clients that are just much, much better, and that you're going to serve well, and they're going to serve you. And it's going to be a great partnership. And I know someone just asked who the coach was. It's Steve Scholl. He's performancecoaching.com. Ina knows him well too. You know, he's a great guy. He played NFL football back in the 80s for the Miami Dolphins. So he's been around the block, and he has a kind of a coaching mentality. He's very direct. You know, there's no ambiguity with Steve. He'll let you know exactly where you stand. He'll let you know exactly what you need to do. And, you know, for me personally, I never knew exactly what to do. I didn't know, should I do postcards? Should I do some different mailers? Should I cold call? Should I do social media? I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but I think the biggest thing I can lend to anyone listening is whatever you decide to do, you have to be consistent. Like Ina, she's amazing at social media, at Instagram, she dominates it. She is so consistent. I mean, to the nth degree, her consistency is amazing. And I think to really be successful in this business, you have to be consistent. All the top agents in this country, there's nothing special. They don't do anything special. They're just very consistent. They manage their time and they call their clients. One thing that Steve taught us is you have to make so many contacts per day, and you have to know your contact to sale ratio. How many contacts do you have to make in order to get a sale? I know it sounds kind of trite, being an MBA, thinking there's some kind of algorithm or an easier way to get business, but there's not. You just have to make your contacts. And then, the top agents, for example, in town, they typically make about 50 contacts per sale. So if you say to yourself, look, I want to get to the point where I literally talk to 50 people and I get a sale. Like, think about that for a second. How amazing would that be? And like, for me, my goal has always been to talk to 20 people a day. Now, my contact to sales ratio was more like 120, depending, 100 to 120. But if I'm really being regimented, I'd like to call people, email, be in touch, 20 people a day. And that's really what I like to do. And just, it's a contact sport. You just have to reach out to people, be in touch, and be of service. I think you have to provide value. And if you're providing value, then they're going to keep you around. And they're going to find you to be a true asset.
That's absolutely on point, especially, since we are the Young Professionals Network. I'm sure we do have a few young agents in the group that, definitely should be taking that to heart. As a young agent myself, consistency is key, and it's definitely a hard practice to learn. Absolutely, to stay on top of it. Actually, this is a great question to lead into it. What are some of the habits and practices that you incorporate into your daily day besides obviously time blocking? Is there anything else in there that helps keep you on track?
Yeah, so historically, I actually would do a lot of door knocking. So I'd like to literally go to folks' store, introduce myself, and just let them know if there's anything that they may need on the real estate front to let me know. And it's not about getting a listing or selling a property. It's more like, I'm your neighbor. I live here around the corner, Noe Valley. And if you happen to need a plumber, electrician, a handyman, let me know. Here's my information. And then oftentimes, people love to talk about real estate. They're like, oh, what's going on in the market? Oh, did you see the place down the street sold? What did it sell for? Do you have a sense of the dynamic? Who bought it? How many offers did they get? So I think if you know the market, you understand things. For me, I would door knock a lot and just introduce myself, and even walk construction sites. Wherever you see a porta potty, you get out, go talk to them, go talk to the electrician, go talk to the plumber. Bring the guys some donuts on Friday. It's a small town. You're going to see these people over and over again, and if you're a friendly face, if you acknowledge them, if you're respectful, and if you try to lend a hand, if you run into the owner, they might say, what kind of floors are in vogue now? What do you recommend? Or what kind of cabinets are people putting in? Or, what do you think about these pool handles versus those pool handles? Or what about this floor plan? Should I orientate the bedroom here? Or should I have a kitchen that opens up to the back here? Like, what do you think? And I think, developers and contractors, they absolutely love to talk about their projects, what they're doing, what's going on. They like to complain to you about the building department or the planning department, or like to hear your thoughts. So, I saw a guy up the street building another home. Do you know what he's doing over there? Is he going to put a second unit in, or, did he get that variance? I heard from another guy, he's getting a variance. Is that going to go? So I think just, being in the know and kind of talking to folks, I think is important. I think you want to, especially in this town. I mean, you guys do not know how blessed we are to be in San Francisco. I mean, coming from Cleveland, Ohio, and just even just the weather alone, it's just amazing here. And the homes are right next to each other. I mean, we should all be door knocking, honestly. You know, there's so much opportunity out there, you know, and we all vibe with different people, you know, like Jeremy said, you know, sometimes there's no chemistry, and no problem. You know, I wish you all the best. You'll find someone that suits your needs, and then that'll open up my time to suit someone else. And for me, historically, that was a hard pill to swallow, because, you know, I wanted everyone to love me, right? I wanted everyone to adore me, to love me. And man, did I take it to heart. If they didn't want to work with me, oh my God, like, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? I shouldn't have said that. I didn't wear the right tie. Oh, I chose to dress down today. I'm never putting a polo on again. I'm always going to wear a tie, you know, like, so I think, and that kind of takes me back to mindset. You know, I think mindset is so important, and just being unconditionally happy. You know, that's one thing that Steve talks about now is oftentimes we tend to have this conditioned mindset of, okay, if this happens, I'll be happy. If this person is nice to me, I'm going to be happy. But if I don't get this sale, I'm not going to be happy. And look, I'm there sometimes, you know, things can trigger me, and it's like, oh, I'm not happy now, you know, like, but I think this is a marathon of a business, and it's not a sprint. And if you keep that in mind, and if you just stay happy, you know, and let things kind of pass through you, good, bad, or otherwise, I think you're going to be better for it. You're going to live longer. You're going to be happier. The people around you are going to be happier. So for me, I think day to day, I still like to be in touch with clients. I like to provide value. You know, I went to a great Jesuit university back in Cleveland, and we had this motto, men and women, in service, men and women for others, you know, men and women for others. And I think providing service, I think you have to provide service, you know, and being men and women for others is paramount to my business. I think the universe really needs service. They need, you know, we all feel a different void for folks, and we have to be there for each other. And I think we've seen that now with COVID, and kind of coming together as humanity, and really being strong. Look, there's going to be differences, but there's always a bad apple here or there, but we have to be above all that, and just keep the big picture in mind, you know, and strive for the best. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, especially during COVID, you know, trying to keep that mindset, and, you know, trying to keep your head above the water was huge. Was that probably, keeping your mindset was probably, you know, helpful in overcoming last year, you know, and making it your best year? Were there other things that attributed to it?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, definitely, you know, mindset was key for me. You know, I think I was, you know, luck, you know, they say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I think for me, I was also fairly lucky. Things went, you know, the ball could have bounced in the other direction, but the ball bounced in my direction. And I did the right things. You know, I kept my head down. I stayed very disciplined. I followed through with everyone that I knew. And, you know, I kept coaching with Steve. I went on a beautiful retreat with him last January, actually, before all of this happened. We went down to Palm Springs. There were about 10 agents from across the country. It was kind of like a spiritual retreat. We did a lot of meditation. You know, like, I never thought of myself as a guy that would meditate. You know, I thought that was kind of foo-foo, silly. I have zero time to meditate. Like, who's gonna, you know, how am I gonna sit down and take 30 minutes to stop thinking? Like, I'm always thinking, I'm always crafting or trying to manage, you know, worst case scenario, whatever. But I got to tell you, meditating is incredible. I think, you know, Ryan Holiday is a great author. He wrote Stillness is the Key, and he studies the Stoicism. and just getting quiet, because we literally have 60,000 thoughts a day. So literally there's 60,000 thoughts running through your head every day, and just getting quiet, taking 20 to 30 minutes to just breathe in, breathe out, and just closing your eyes like first thing in the morning. I think meditating for me has really, and it's beautiful. I mean, you kind of get to this other level that you can't really explain. And for me, I feel like I have better days if I take that 20 or 30 minutes to just meditate in the morning, versus even going for like a long run or going to the gym. It's almost better to meditate. So I encourage people to do that as well. I think that's a whole nother level of doing things. But the retreat was wonderful with Steve, and that really kind of prepped my year last year. We had a motto. It was called "Expect Miracles." And not knowing COVID was going to hit, that our whole motto was "Expect Miracles." And I mean, sure enough. I mean, I had a bit of a miracle year, and here we are, 2021, I'm more close to 40 million in sales already. And, like Michelle said, the year is still young. So we're very fortunate. We're just so fortunate to be, here in San Francisco and in the Bay Area.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of how fortunate you're, almost to 40 million, last question for you, what do you see in your crystal ball for the residential market? If you're willing to share what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, look, I think the markets can continue to move at a strong pace for the rest of the year. Rates are low, money is cheap, supply is limited. I think good inventory is limited. I mean, there's things out there that are good enough, but I think property that's dialed in, renovated, homes, especially single family homes that are sub 3 million, are flying off the shelf in the prime areas, Noe Valley, Rico Valley, Clarendon Heights, really anywhere that's popular, is flying off the shelf. Even condos now are very robust, especially in smaller 2 to 4 unit buildings. It's incredibly desirable. Even in Soma, South Beach, things are picking up a bit. There's more desirability there. I think historically, the fall market always is a little bit softer, kind of irrespective of the spring. But I think people coming back into the city, employers looking for people to come back into the office, I do think that the fall market will be pretty robust as well. There is some buyer fatigue out there. I think there are buyers who are discouraged, kind of have the tail between the legs and saying, look, I can't compete in this market. I'm going to take myself out of the market. I'm going to go travel. Things are opening up. I'm going to go see family, friends, go to hot destinations that I couldn't do, last year. But I do think it's all cyclical. It always is going to be cyclical, but I think we are just so fortunate and blessed to be in San Francisco that it's such a unique market, and it's really simple. It's supply and demand. That's what it is. And we really have limited supply. And I think it's going to continue to push forward, and with government aid, with monetary policy being as low as it is, and them keeping, inflation is rising a bit, but look, the best hedge to inflation is real estate, right? If you want to hedge yourself against inflation, get into real estate. So, because basically the dollar in theory is losing value. So then you need more dollars to buy real estate, meaning the real estate values go up in price. So, count your blessings. I think we're all fortunate to be working in the market that we're working in. Keep your head on straight, stay positive, don't get flustered. That's the best advice I can give to the younger agents in the business. It's discouraging. Trust me, we've all been there. We're going to continue to be there. That's just the nature of people. We all have good days and bad days, and we're dealing with the public. So there's no way around it. But yeah, I think the market's going to continue to do very well here in the Bay Area.
Awesome. I like the sound of that. And it's kind of like what Michelle said, you know, once the vaccine hit, I wasn't expecting this turnaround until at least end of Q2, starting Q3, and it just snapped right back. But thank you, Dino, for, you know, all your insight and learning a little bit more about how you got into the business, which is really cool.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. And it was wonderful listening to everyone else speak too about their experience and where they're coming from. It's wonderful.
Yeah, now we'll go to the Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to type it into the chat. We have one question for Ina. Is forewarned $20 a month?
And this will be the best $20 you'll ever spend.
So it is $20.
It is $20 a month. Yeah, it's for realtors only. It basically is an aggregate. What they do is they take all public records and they compile them into this very easy to read, understand, just list of, you know, who they are, where they live, what their financial situation looks like. And yeah, and you'll know, I know a lot of top agents actually use similar, either this one or a similar program, because when they get a lead, they want to know if these are real people. They want to spend their time with them. So, you know, once you know more about them, you can look at LinkedIn, you can look at Facebook, be like, okay, so this is worth my time or it's not worth my time.
Can you search it by phone number and or name, or?
Yes, you can search by phone number or by name. As a matter of fact, that actually kind of saved me from a very unfortunate situation that might have happened. I had someone made an appointment with me, and then it's just, he just didn't feel right. And then when I looked him up, the rap sheet was like 5 miles long. And I canceled the appointment and blocked him. But and it's a very fun pastime, guys. Trust me. Look at all your friends, all your competition. It's so good.
Looks like we have another question. Ina, what source do you use for rental comps? Do you find that Zumper data is accurate?
I don't like Zumper. I mean, I know the CEO of Zumper. I know his mom. She's one of our fellow realtors. But I don't like Zumper. For some reason, it's, you know, when you advertise the leads, there's hardly ever any leads from them. I don't know why. So for comps, what I do is for very quick sort of like gut check, I guess, it's Craigslist. Because people still post on Craigslist, and a lot of people still post on Craigslist even more because Zillow charges $10 a week right now for rentals. So that's a good one. And then obviously checking Zillow as well. Zillow is just not as easy to navigate. I'm not a huge fan of it, but people tend to like it. So that's what I do. And I want to say thank you to Dino for you know, mentioning my consistency on social media. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but you know, for any new agents, having been consistent on social media, with social media and all the digital services that we have, like Google My Business, what it does is it makes you referenceable. When somebody, you know, even when a big agent refers me a client, what they do is they go to Google and they type in my name and they look at my YouTube channel, they look at my Google reviews, they look at my Yelp, they look at everything. And that's what, by the time I walk into the conversation, they've already know who I am, what I'm about, what I offer, what kind of personality I've got. And they're usually more than 90% of these are ready to hire me. So that's really, really important to have all of that platform that you can constantly rely on.
We have another question from Paul directly for Jeremy. How are the San Francisco downtown commercial office high-rise properties looking?
Zero idea. Sorry, I focus on multifamily, so I really don't follow office or retail or anything like that. You know, sometimes I'll work on a mixed use building where it's like you know, apartments over retail or apartments over a restaurant or something like that. But, you know, one of the things to think about when you approach commercial real estate, or when you're looking for, you know, someone to refer business to as a commercial realtor, is it's such a big umbrella. And within that, there's the niches of, you know, apartment buildings, of the people who really just do the 5+ units, of the people who do retail, who do office leasing, who do tenant rep. And, you know, this has actually happened a few times where I'll get referrals for someone looking for office space. And I tell them, you know, that's really not my thing. And it's actually kind of tough, because, you know, there's not a lot of realtors out there who do, you know, tenant rep on leasing or things like that, unless it's super lucrative, unless it's, you know, Twitter looking for office space and things like that. So it does happen, you know, more often than not, that I'll get a referral and then I have to be the one to give them the bad news that, you know, you're kind of better off just, you know, doing LoopNet or something like that. But yeah, I don't know enough about that market, unfortunately.
What is LoopNet? I've never heard of that.
So LoopNet is the commercial MLS. It's, you know, if you're doing anything, you know, multifamily or commercial, you're gonna post it on LoopNet. So, you know, when I have a new listing, I'll put it on the SFAR MLS. I'll put it on LoopNet. LoopNet and CoStar are, you know, sister companies. CoStar, I think, owns LoopNet or vice versa. And the great thing about that platform is that it does go out to, you know, it's kind of like a Zillow also for commercial. So, you know, I get a lot of leads from LoopNet from just having my listings up there. People will call me from all over and they'll say, hey, I just sold a house, or I sold, you know, I sold a condo, or I sold another building, and I want to get into the San Francisco market. I see that you've done a lot in the market, you know, and that's a really great, a great source of leads, and then also a great source of knowing what's available for commercial real estate. And it's nationwide as well, so you can look up stuff, you know, all over.
Very interesting. Never heard about it. But that's what we have you here for it.
Yep, I'm here for it. just send them to me. I'll tell them, you know, I'll tell them how it all works. Oh, I also want to say thank you guys. This was really fun, really great opportunity. I feel honored to be, you know, in the same, you know, chat with Ina and Dino and Michelle and everyone. I feel like I've gotten to know so many agents in different ways, through social media or through, you know, doing brokers tours, or just, you know, chasing after listings and going down with buyers. So it's really awesome to kind of be on the same panel and get to know more about each and every one of you guys. So thank you for the opportunity.
And hopefully this will be one of our last webinars, because we're able to be doing things in person. So we'll be doing something similar in the fall, hopefully in person, and have a few more YPN events coming up in person as well. So we're excited.
And you all get the invite, and there will be lots of wine at the events too.
That's what we're known for.
Any last questions from the audience?
No, I think we're good. I think they did a pretty amazing, thorough explanation from our other questions.
I guess one last minute question.
Oh.
Are there any investor groups that are looking into investing in new commercial real estate development in STEM research building campus?
I think that one's for you, Jeremy.
No idea.
No, and then there's a follow-up in Rio Rancho, New Mexico.
Oh.
That's a great question. What I would say is maybe use something like LoopNet as a resource to kind of locate who those agents are in that area and reach out to them directly. I mean, I'm sure that could be.
Or Ina.
I'm actually lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico for many, many years, and I have contacts in real estate. So let me know and just ping me directly, and I can put you in touch with them if they still remember me. But But yeah, I know where Rio Rancho, New Mexico is.
We have a funny question from Michael Barnacle. What is Michelle's favorite jewelry brand?
That's funny. That's very funny, Michael. I would probably say my favorite is Gurhan, Gurhan. It's made out of very soft 22 and 24 karat gold, and it's all hand done and it's hammered. It's just beautiful. It makes me happy when I look at it, and all the jewels in it just looks like candy to me, you know. It's a funny question. Oh, and I did want to say something that I actually was wanting to mention earlier to all the, you know, agents out there, that CRM is huge. And I think that it's really important for you to, you know, stick to one. And they say the best CRM is the one you actually use, because there's so many out there. But if there's one that you really connect with, work on that, because you know, our bread and butter, actually the bulk of our business, 56% comes from past clients, sphere of influence, referral base, right? So keeping in touch with your clients, just like Dino calls his clients all the time, or even calls new clients, it's really important to stay in touch and have that communication. I think that was something that Jeremy mentioned too during COVID. He had called all his clients. The CRM I use is called Follow Up Boss. We were using Copper for a minute, but we found Copper to be a little clunky. So we switched over to Follow Up Boss, and it's great. Very user-friendly, very easy. You can put in there drip campaigns for your new clients that you meet. You can put reminders in there. You can do birthday cards, reminders for your clients. You can do, you know, if you meet a new lead somewhere and you know that it's kind of a warm lead, someone that's looking to buy in maybe 6 months to a year, it's really good to have it automated just to touch base with them. And then when they respond, it comes into your inbox. And there's no way that our mind can memorize and remember all of these things. There's no way. And this is why the CRM is so important. Yeah. And when you guys asked earlier about the tools that you use, I would say your CRM is definitely something that I can't live without.
If I can piggyback off of that, I use Google Contacts. I use Google Docs, and it's free. And I've paid for so many different programs and tools. You know, and to Michelle's point, the best one is that you use. So I would have all these bills going out for things I wasn't using. And during COVID, you know, cutting back on expenses was very important. So I just kind of went back to what worked and what I used. And you know, there's so much time that I would just be on the couch with the movie in the background, just, you know, going through and texting everyone in my database. And, you know, some of my best clients that I'm doing repeat business from now came out of just, you know, texting someone who was at home bored during COVID. And then we started looking at properties together. And now we've done, you know, 3 deals together in the last, you know, several months. So when it comes to, you know, your database and following up, you know, just really getting out there and reaching out to everybody, and just not having any preconceived notions about what could happen, because you don't know what can happen until you make that call, make that text, send that email. You know, so many times I'll just go through my database, you know, I'll wake up and say, what am I doing today? If I don't have anything on the calendar, I'll just sit there and go one by one and say, hey, how's it going? How's it going with your property? Any plans on buying or selling this year? Hit send, do it again. You don't have to think of anything magical to say. You don't have to, you're really just letting them know that you're thinking about them. It's really nice when they receive something that's direct and personal, not like a spam. You know, I use Constant Contact to send out updates about properties and whatnot, but there's nothing like that, you know, hey, how are you? How's your property doing? You know, email that's just to that one person. And you get really, really great results when someone sees that you took the time to reach out to them directly.
All right, I think that's a very nice conclusion to the panel. I also very much enjoy how we actually organically went over the time limit. So thank you for everyone sticking around. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
So great. Nice.
Yeah, virtual round of applause for everyone.
Jeremy and Dino
and
Ashley.
Yeah, we'll email all of the attendees with all the panel's information. So if you guys want to connect later, but yeah, hope to see you all at future YPN events. So thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Bye guys.
All right, bye everyone.